Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the podcast. Today, I'm here with Chris. Chris was a guest on series 1 of the podcast when we talked about his food delivery service, Hippocrates. And he's in a few weeks of downtime right now, which is exciting because we've managed to get him on and there is something new and exciting coming. Since we last spoke to Chris, we've also both had babies, so life has changed quite considerably. Chris, would you like to reintroduce yourself?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Chris. Previously of Hippocrates and soon to be of the Real Food Kitchen. So that's our rebrand of the
That's
business.
exciting. So, like before, we'll do a little saucy starter introduction to you, meaty main course, and then a few takeaways. Tell us what's been happening since the last podcast and all about this rebrand. I'm intrigued.
Okay. So Hippocrates was essentially a live project, I guess. It began like 5 years ago, and I had a thesis of what I thought was a solution to the ultimate problem of how do you actually feed people in mass, which turns out is not an easy solution.
Yeah.
Especially in the modern world. The problem is our modern society hasn't really kept up with nutrition and food as a whole, and the way we eat and where we get our food from. It's fallen behind, I think. I think we can all agree on that. And so I set about to try and figure out, so what is it? How can I do something to solve this issue? And I think ultimately there is not one solution to this problem, but to come up with a solution is what I tried to do. So I had a thesis of what I would try to do initially, and ultimately that was, if you can eliminate seed oils, if you can eliminate refined sugar, and for the most part eliminate gluten, you're in a pretty good place to go from. And those three things generally they don't benefit anyone. So why
You
have
still
them?
agree on that fact.
And sorry, what?
You still agree on that fact?
I agree on that fact. Yes, gluten I think is a more complicated issue,
Mm.
but the seed oils and the refined sugar, I'm pretty confident that they're responsible for huge amounts of inflammation and disease in people's body. And now I have 5 years of data collecting and testimonies to back it up. So up until this point, it was a live trial. I was experimenting on my customers essentially
Yeah.
to see what worked by getting feedback and seeing how people felt. Like, the question I would ask people is not like, how does the food taste? I mean, I do care. I know it tastes good though. So like, I'm not too worried about that. I asked them, how do you feel?
Yeah.
You know, after a week, after 2, 6 months down the line. So it's very
Chris,
obvious.
can I pause you there?
Yes.
I'm just going to quickly, for anyone who does not know, Hippocrates was a real food delivery service based out of Queenstown. You could order your meals online and pick them up from the gym, I think once or twice a week.
Three
Was it?
times, actually.
3 times a week. And really, really good ingredients, really good amounts of protein, natural healthy fats, natural carbohydrates if you wanted them, with lower carb options as well. He basically took the difficult parts out of everything I teach you in my program and push it all in a box for you ready to eat, which
Yes.
comes with the same challenges because obviously that's an expensive process to do all that.
Yes, it is.
Whether or not people see the value or not, it's different. But what I'm really intrigued about here is, like you said, it's a live experiment, which I suppose is kind of like what my business has been as well. Started in 2020. I think it's close to 300 people been through the program now. And like you say, weight loss, great. Look good, great. How you feel is the real crux of it. So, Chris, what did you notice of how people felt when they...
Okay, so it becomes pretty clear that people that sign up to do 5 days a week, just at the weekend, if they go out and eat something that's full of crap, they immediately feel the difference, and that's across the board. I mean, I know it personally. I really feel the difference. And the better you eat, if you eat well more, unfortunately, it means you really notice more as well. So Whether that's good or bad is debatable. I think it's good.
Yeah, it's an interesting question on balance, isn't it? Because a couple episodes ago, you should have a listen, I interviewed a guy called Liam McKenzie, who's a performance endurance athlete. He's way beyond me and you. He is weighing, measuring everything he eats, down to the gram. But he actually commented he's just recently moved from Australia to Wanaka. He doesn't really enjoy eating out anymore. And I think so you and I might say that as well. Like, I definitely enjoy eating out, but finding things that I enjoy eating as much as home cooked food, or eating out, but being like, I'm going to feel this the next day. Like, it's an interesting feeling.
It's a trade-off every time you go out. And unfortunately, no one's doing anything about it. And the awareness is not there for the restaurants. And I understand, like, it costs more. So, it costs more to produce food without the cheap fillers. So I get it. And it's already difficult. Like, making any money from food is near enough impossible. So I understand, but our customers definitely see the value in it. Like right now, I've got a few weeks away, and I know that all of our customers are looking forward to the return. So
you're starting back up again.
To starting back up again. It happens like every Christmas. We shut down for a couple of weeks, and by the time I'm back, everyone's like, when are you coming back? When are you coming back? Like, I feel terrible. So it's nice to know. It's nice to know. I mean, I guess if no one was cared about you going away, then your product is not very good. So
yeah, you're missing something. Yeah, I've already had a couple of clients being like, I've heard you're going away to Europe. There's something called the internet.
There is.
I mostly help with information these days and support.
Yeah. Well, that's a good point to why my business is necessary, because from a lot of people, no amount of information will ever be enough. They don't care. They don't want to understand nutrition. Are not interested in it. And that's evident. And that's why they need it. So it doesn't matter how much you tell them. What they need is a solution. And that equates to going to a doctor. The information's there. If you want to help yourself, you can.
Yeah.
But you go to a doctor because you want the quick fix, or you want the pill. So this is the pill. I can take all of the work out for you and just give you it. So you just
tell you what, if I could take every single one of my clients who is pre-diabetic, on blood sugar medication, on diabetes medication, on statins, all of those things.
Is that in there?
No, but can we talk about that? I have so many thoughts on it.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I do actually have. I had a lovely client in Wanaka whose husband was pre-diabetic, middle-aged, gaining weight, pre-diabetic, went to the diabetes clinic and got given Ozempic. No one knows it's right here in our society, and it's not that hard to make your blood sugar levels look pre-diabetic. If people want a reason to get Ozempic, that is your hack. There's also the new generations now. But anyway, I digress. So all those clients of mine, high cholesterol, on diabetes medication, all those things, if I could prescribe them your meals delivered, so say my program, all the information, your meals align, I think we established that last time, just your meals delivered to their house for maybe 2, 3 or 4 weeks, I reckon we can get them off that medication.
I'd say so.
Listen to that?
Yeah, definitely, because they'll feel the difference. You will know. I think 2 weeks is how long it will take for you to. Yeah, 2 weeks of eating this food, and you'll be like, I actually, my energy levels are better. You wake up in the morning, you're good to go. You're not having. Most important.
I think we mentioned last time, you were like, within a week, people feel a difference, and I agree. I think for like medical remission of some of these things, I think 2 weeks is quite possible.
I think so.
Yeah.
The issue is what do you do outside of that, and so I've designed the meals to sort of tackle that solution as well. So they are not high. The macros are a reasonably even split, but the fat is in there, and it's important that it's in there, and it's important the type of fat, which is predominantly animal fat, and that's in there because it stops you snacking. It makes you feel full. Amongst other things, we could talk forever about why fat is essential when it comes to hormones and the like. Yeah, absolutely. and women's, not testosterone, but just all hormone, not all, but there's a lot of hormones that rely on fat for pathways and moving around the body. It's that, but mostly it will stop them from snacking and not feeling like they need to snack on, crap, because how often do people snack on something great? Like if you're already struggling with what to eat, snacks are always going to be bad. So
Yeah,
that's important too.
agreed. And so I think we talked about it. I shouldn't have listened to our last podcast because we covered off so much good stuff. I don't want to repeat it, but it was all so valid, right? So both you and I are new parents. You are knackered a lot of the time. I'm sure you might agree.
I
And we
agree.
talked about it last time before either of us were parents, but because I heard it from all my clients, right, you're absolutely knackered. Most mums feeling a bit fluffy, want to lose weight. They might have just gone to the gym and they might be trying to fast or they might be trying to eat not much. So they might have a little bit of muesli or maybe a cereal bar, maybe a yogurt full of sugar. But anyway, try and eat a salad with not enough protein. And then by the time they get to like school pickup, they are so emotionally drained from trying to do the wrong thing. And then you go into the supermarket and we talked about this last time, all these snacks are at eye level. The chocolates, they're depleted in magnesium. There's all this sugar and I don't know if we talked about this last time, but the protein leverage hypothesis. So if you've undereaten protein, you will try and overeat everything else until your protein requirements are met. So that's really interesting. So if you haven't eaten enough protein throughout the first half of the day, you're ravenous.
And also, you're more than likely eating a lot of sugar, which means your insulin is all over the place. And yeah, you up and down like a yo-yo. It's horrible. It's because I still do things like this. Like I'm not immune to the persuasive. Yeah, that marketing in the supermarkets, but they get you. They get me sometimes. Oh yeah, I do want that. I do want that Winners bar of chocolate. It's right there in this lovely shiny gold packaging at eye level right before the till when I'm starving. Yeah, I'll get one.
Yeah.
And I'll eat it. I'll eat it all. So, I'm not perfect either. Far from it. But, well, that's another thing, isn't it? Like the way that it is allowed to be marketed that way and the amount of money they've spent to figure out how to break you is scandalous. And that leads me on to kind of what is driving the rebrand. So like you said, if you was to prescribe this food, that would be great. And when I started Hippocrates, that was my intention to get, health providers such as yourself and others to do so. But I didn't have enough backing. I didn't have enough experience. I didn't have enough clout to really justify and stand behind my thesis. So now that I do, I feel like I can make health claims. However, I feel like I need to market more towards the consumer rather than the people like yourself who would be recommending it, because food is still ingrained into our soul, like the desire to eat and satiety and, feeling comfort from it. What I have discovered is also extremely important, and food as medicine. I mean, the more I think about it, the more I think what a terrible branding idea that I came up with in the first place, because it doesn't appeal to me one bit. If someone says, eat this food, it's medicine, I'm like, I don't know, that doesn't sound that nice.
It's so funny because it appealed to me in a geeky way. I was like, you've got my attention. But like you had my attention as like an integrative nutritionist, food marketer. I was like,
it was meant to appeal to someone like you. But that was a mistake because it doesn't appeal to the people who to the general population.
Most people probably won't even get the Hippocrates thing.
No, they don't. I ask people, do you understand what it means? And they'll be like, yeah. Like, what is it? Like, hypocrites. Like, we're hypocrites because we eat bad food. I'm like,
Did you do focus groups to discover this?
Well, I ask people all the time, because I have like where I'm positioned at the gym. Predominantly, most of my customers walk past me every day.
Yeah.
So I'm in constant communication, just like that, and I find out a lot like that. However, I've digressed as well.
So, Chris, quickly, people. So we'll get to your rebrand and where you're going to, but can you just explain to everyone who Hippocrates is?
Yes. So Hippocrates is a Greek physician from 2,500 years ago, and his most famous quote, there are many, would be food is medicine. Let food be thy medicine. And yeah, simple as that. And also, more importantly, every single doctor on, I don't know about on Earth, but certainly in the Western world, takes the Hippocratic Oath. So he was that influential in medicine for 2,500 years that every single doctor in the Western world takes their oath based on his teachings. And yet we have fallen far, far, far away from that. So that is where the hypocrisy comes from, ironically.
So do you reckon if we asked a percentage of doctors in New Zealand, even in England, do you reckon many of them could tell us that?
Yes.
You think they could?
Yes, I do.
How many do you think live by it?
Very few. Some,
Yeah.
but the ones I have encountered in the last couple of years, I guess, and that's mainly from going to see doctors about baby stuff.
Yeah.
I don't generally bother with myself because this is what I found out. Yeah, they'll take the high ground initially, and yeah, Hippocrates. One of them actually said it's actually pronounced Hippocrates because I had my T-shirt on, and I was like, oh yeah, so this is what I do. Told him about it briefly, and he was like, yeah, whatever, and then just brush it aside, and that just constantly happens. And I feel like they're threatened by it actually. Like
Yeah.
it kind of is the counter narrative to what they're doing, which is, in my experience, and I don't want to generalize because I know that there are good doctors doing great things, but
Agreed.
it's just, here's the pill. You came here for this, right? Here's your prescription. Now get out. I've got someone else to see. You've had your 5 minutes. Can't ask another
Yeah,
question. You can only have one.
10-minute appointment times. Yeah, if you've got 2 issues, book 2 appointments, and you can rarely do that. I'm really keen, Chris, to get on to you going to the doctor, and because that's the only reason I've been to the doctor recently as well, pregnancy and babies, right?
Mm.
I want you to finish about your rebrand. So real
Yeah.
food kit.
Yeah.
How do we get
So Real Food Kitchen, I don't think you can mistake what that is trying to do. So I've really, really drawn it back to be obvious. Real food is self-explanatory somewhat. I mean, obviously we can talk about it forever, but in 2 words, yep, cool. And kitchen suggested as being cooked for you, I think. So in
perfect?
three short words, it summarizes what we do, whereas Hippocrates does not explain anything. But also there's a double entendre in there as well, and I've chosen a new champion who's a bit more relevant to
Oh yeah.
the modern times, and that's RFK. Controversial or not, I'm willing
Tell
to
me more.
discuss it. So Bobby Kennedy, RFK Jr. in America, has just begun the Make America Healthy Again
He is the one
movement.
that's in charge of it.
Yes, and he has all the exact same values that we do.
You know what's so funny is friends started sending me his content on X, and I never pay attention to American politics. And I was like, hang on a second.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've kept it subtle this time anyway, and just, Real Food Kitchen, RFK, it's in there, but it's not everything. It's just, I think we're going to find out a lot of crazy stuff in the next couple of 2 or 3 years when he starts digging into the corruption. And
Do you
that's his
think he'll
goal.
be successful?
He will either be successful or get shot, like his uncle and his father were assassinated for digging too deep on corruption. So I do hope so. But
I never
if there's anyone,
on this podcast, but here we are. Yeah, I'm
Mm,
intrigued. I can't wait to see it.
mm.
And the other, if you come across Callie and Casey Means,
Of course, yeah,
yeah, they're doing some
fantastic.
work. So for
Yeah, but
anyone who
they got their platform through him as well. It was by talking to him, that's kind of where they got their profile
can you
lifted.
explain what they do? I can't remember the name of their book, but they're basically both, or she's a physician anyway, and they're just kind of unearthing all this corruption in the US.
Yeah, she was a surgeon, a top level surgeon at one of, top universities in America, so high level, and she discovered, or realized more like, that you eat what you kill, is what they say in the American medicine. So you have to create patients to cure them. And she realized this and was like, I can't do this anymore. So she started finding out more and more and more and went down that path. But her brother is a lawyer, or he was a prosecution or defense lawyer for a pharmaceutical industry and previously for Coca-Cola, I think. So they've been right in there.
What she went into as well as, I remember she specialized in something like ear, nose and throat. And she realized that all these little bits that she was operating on, like something to like 80 or 90% of her patients all came in with chronic inflammation, diabetes, obesity, all these things. And she was like, I don't think the nose operation is the issue. I think it's the fact that all these underlying conditions that's leading them to a place where they've got so many systemic issues that they require surgery.
Yeah, which doesn't fix the underlying issue, like you say. So it will just come back, just with a different shaped face.
How do we do the equivalent of that in New Zealand? Because I honestly think we're like not quite as bad as America, but we're up there.
It needs to be tackled 100%. But it will have a knock-on effects. You know, like America usually goes first in massive political shifting of things, and New Zealand usually goes last, except for certain things like voting and whatnot.
So in 10 years' time?
Well, I hope we can start a movement. I think it's important. Because if we was to actually pull the data up of obesity and diabetes, cardiovascular disease, it is the number one killer. If you group them together, it's head and shoulders above anything else. So that's a problem for the foundations of our society. So that's why I think it's such an important problem to address, because think what else could we achieve as a nation or a society or a group of people when everybody's healthy?
If we're healthy, we have less sick days, we have less brain fog. Because let's be honest, we were both, I remember you talking about being vegan, but we were also both probably sugar and carb addicts in the past, running on empty, but hugely glucose driven up and down.
Alcohol too.
What, sorry?
Alcohol too. That was a big shift. Restricting alcohol somewhat has
you cut out completely like all of Gen Z?
No.
Or not?
No. Not completely, but I certainly don't drink like I used to do.
No, the babies help that too, though, don't they?
They do. It's not worth it. It's really not worth it.
So, Chris, tell me more about your lovely little daughter. So I have Charlie, who is 10 months old. Your daughter is nearly 1.
She's nearly 1, yes. Her name is Esmeralda.
Esmeralda, how has Esmeralda changed life for you?
All for the better. Yeah. Priorities have completely shifted. I think even before she came along, I was, very much moving towards trying to live the best life possible. But then when your child comes along, now I'm thinking, how do I make sure she lives the best life possible? And my life has to take second place. So you give up sleep sometimes. Whereas before, no, sleep is the most important thing you can have. And it is. But making sure your child sleeps is more important than making sure you do. So, you have to make sacrifices and things like that.
Obviously, the two come together, because if they sleep, you can sleep better. But I know exactly what you mean. And I also find as it shifted you, it kind of shifts you towards more long-term thinking.
Yep,
you can't
absolutely.
Parent, can you? Because they're going at a certain pace.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's definitely true. It's also fascinating to watch them. I think we both have like a scientific mind where we're trying to see patterns and what happens in nature. And so the best way to do it is just to see how a baby operates, because they don't have any conditioning yet. So just like what they want to eat. Fascinating. What they choose to eat and what they choose to not. I'm like, interesting. Okay.
How they move. What's on her table?
Well, it's varying vastly at the moment. She's good for the last few weeks. She's going through a period of major development and growth, teething. So she's not been eating as well as she was before. But initially, she was eating lots of meat and fruit, somewhat a whole load else actually. Like that was the main bulk of her diet, and vegetables. We'd give her everything really, like whatever's around. We'd let her try it and see what she wants to eat and what she doesn't. You really can't force them to eat what they don't want to eat. But it changes. Like at the moment, she's eating less meat. She's not that bothered. She's wanting to eat fruits and vegetables. I think maybe because they're softer and her teeth are hurting. So it's really hard to get a gauge on what they are craving in their bellies rather than what is actually hurting their mouth.
Yeah, we've got the similar.
Yeah. Well, what about you? Are you doing a similar kind of thing?
Yeah, so I'm going to do a bit of a deep dive here, even though I'm interviewing Chris, but I haven't told many
No,
people
go
this.
for it.
Throughout my pregnancy and definitely postpartum, I have been quite heavily carnivore whilst eating fruits and veggies, I suppose, for pleasure when I
Yeah.
feel like.
Yep. I
Yeah.
agree with that philosophy as well.
Yeah, I think like when you're a new parent, especially when you're breastfeeding, which dear God, I had a huge clusterfuck and didn't end up doing it, ended up pumping for 8 weeks. You'll have been in the thick of this, so I don't mind sharing or oversharing. But it was wild. Your calorie consumption is through the roof. I think there was something like close to 3 liters of milk some days, which I think takes about 1,200 calories to produce. So beyond your normal functioning. This is why your bodies try and lay down fat stores during pregnancy, because you need them so quickly, so fast afterwards. And so, yeah, just eating basically lots of meat, especially fatty meat in those early days. And I can probably add the pictures to this podcast now. So the technology is so wonderful. My postpartum was wild. Like I've got a picture from a week after or 2 weeks after, 8 weeks after. So that was the only duration I was breastfeeding. I look completely different. Not even breastfeeding but pumping. And it's like what your body does naturally, the way it sucks on those fat stores is insane.
Mm-hmm.
So I found that really interesting. But also you're quite heavily stressed when you've got a new little baby. And so your cortisol are going like this. And I wasn't digesting loads of fibrous veggies really well. My body did not want it. And so I kind of went a little bit off them. And then especially as I went back to work, I just sort of stuck with similar. So relatively just like basically a meat focus or meat and eggs throughout the day for breakfast, lunch or brunch. And then veggies at dinner, maybe a piece of fruit if I feel like it, maybe a few. Like the last few days I've eaten 2 or 3 pieces of fruit because it's season.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. So and we did the same with Charlie as you've described. So he loved sucking on meat, absolutely loved fatty meat, loved butter. Then as we went through teething and a few other issues, one of his favorite things at the moment is actually cottage cheese because it tastes milky and it's a really good vessel for introducing other flavors. So for example, mixing a little bit of tuna with cottage cheese, mixing a little bit of pate with cottage cheese. Pate is a hit.
It is. She loves pate. Yeah.
Yeah. This is weird, Chris. We're the weird ones.
Yeah, I know. Pate is weird, but those tubes of slop that come in foil things
I know.
are
So
normal.
I've been feeding Charlie bread. First piece of bread he tried. I work with a chef over here called Gabby from my kitchen garden. She bakes her own focaccia. That was the first bread Charlie ever tried. So it wasn't exactly the most processed. But he loves bread, so he loves nori on bread, and I'm not afraid to give it to him. So active, like crawling everywhere, all over the place. And we have done a few of the pouches, but only the savory ones.
Yes.
And that marketing in itself, right? So spring roast lamb, like 10% lamb. Guys, rubbish. And I know that. Hence, supplementing him with additional meat, cottage cheeses, butter, pate, things like that, or eggs that are really nutritious. Most of my friends are at the level, oh my God, my husband's just told me how bad the pouches are. They're so full of sugar. And I'm sitting there going...
Haven't you looked? Before you feed something to your baby, maybe have a look what it is.
But it's so normal. It's actually really, really, really difficult to do it the way we're doing it, okay, it's not difficult, but if you are not in this world, if you're not really well educated and you don't know how to get soft, squishy forms of protein or choline or, those sort of things that you get in eggs and the nutrition that you get from butter, like, it's a tricky thing to get your head around.
It is, especially like my partner Laura. She's constantly getting vilified by her friends for the way we do things and thinking that we're unusual. But our child is thriving. She's basically never sick. She's leaps and bounds development wise above all of the others. So, I'll take your advice with a pinch of salt. Thanks. Literally.
It's a very, very tricky time, and I definitely find it difficult, like you say, probably similar to Laura. I definitely feel quite judged.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. And people go, don't worry, I feed them this as well, or, oh, I only let them have bread. And I'm like, I don't care what you feed your child, like, each to their own.
Yeah.
Can I ask, is it Esmer, pronounce her name again for Esmeralda? Gorgeous. I was like, Esmeralda, and it's not Esme. Okay, Esmeralda.
No,
Is she in daycare, or do you have her at home?
No, she's at home.
Very lucky, right?
Yeah.
This is a battle you might one day face.
Yeah.
So Charlie has been in daycare a few months. No. Sickness, fine. There was a blip a few weeks. It was a bit hellish. Sickness combined with some teething when they get all of the bugs. Charlie's been fine ever since, to be quite honest. Not a problem at all. Like you say, maybe it's immune system thing or like eating well, but he's been fine. What I am battling with, the menu that they feed them at daycare.
Oh, really?
Are you ready for this?
I am sort of ready.
They feed them healthy food, all homemade. I don't think you're going to be surprised. And then one day I went in, and it was when Charlie started doing a few more hours. So he was having breakfast, morning tea, lunch, afternoon tea. And we were sort of discussing what he'd eaten that day to see how well he slept and blah, blah. He'd had waffles for breakfast, followed by some brownie, a jam Sammy.
Brownie.
A brownie.
Okay, yep.
A jam Sammy.
Yeah.
And then I see them sometimes, the breakfast. It's really healthy. Wheat Bix with like tinned peaches in the syrup. Like, this is a child, I can't brush his teeth yet.
Yeah.
Like, because he rips too much. Like, honestly.
Well, he won't have any if he carries on eating that.
But it's wild. And it terrifies me that that's normal. And this is funny because I'm right here, I'm talking about all this on the World Wide Web. That shows my age. But the problem is I can't even bring myself to say something to the daycare teachers.
Well, even if you did, there's nothing they can do about it. And do you know why? Because New Zealand government official Ministry of Health guidelines, you are not allowed to give children saturated fat at all. It is red. They've got green, orange, and red different foods, and saturated fat is red, so it's 0. So if you are feeding children from an official a school or something like that from within the school, then they cannot include it. So the food pyramid and structure that they're using is so unbelievably backwards that it is worrisome. And you can find this online. I discovered this when I was looking into providing food to schools, and I came across this information, and it's like, well, that's not what I do.
You said last year, you said that you couldn't provide schools with food because of the saturated fat content, but you could if you used certain polysaturated fat, or it had to be canola or vegetable oil or something.
Yeah, you could use, which are not saturated. They are mono, unstable right. Fats. They are. Yeah. So that's what you have to use, and there's nothing will cause you more inflammation in a poor little child's body than all of those seed oils, and sounds like a lot of sugar too. It's the worst. It's completely wrong. So I don't know who's responsible for this, but This will tie in with the RFK thing in America because it's the same there, and the corruption and the links between the pharmaceutical industry and the food industry, and how they're all the same people and that they're actually working in government as well and passing the laws. And that's why we have this mess. And it's just a few greedy people who are willing to compromise the health of their entire population just so they can make a bit of extra money. So RFK's mission is to weed that out. It will take longer here, I'm sure. But did you also know that New Zealand is the only other place in the world aside from America that you're able to advertise pharmaceuticals on TV, radio, wherever? Nowhere else in
I
the
thought
world
it
are you allowed to do that.
was, they did it here.
Yeah, here.
Television. Oh my God.
Well, I don't either. People do. It's a thing.
I thought it was Australia. I didn't realize it was here as well. That's really
That's it.
interesting. So because I do have a couple of friends taking medications that I wouldn't necessarily agree with, or I would probably try and dig out the root cause. So to be open and honest, a lot of my friends are on serotonin reuptake inhibitors, depression and anxiety medication, that they go in there with like issues after having a baby, various different things. And no, actually every single one of them has been after they've had their first child. No one tries to help them with the root cause or what they're feeling or
No.
how they might be able to fuel themselves better. Perhaps they need more protein or fat or to decrease their stress. It's like, no, take a pill. What
Yeah.
are your thoughts? Let's be broad because Ozempic's actually old news. So Ozempic, owned by Novo Nordisk, which is a Dutch company. I don't think they're actually legal there. But anyway,
They're not.
they sell them in America. And Ozempic is now old news because I bought shares because I was getting really interested in the whole scenario and they were going to roll them out across America. So there's Novo Nordisk and Eli Lilly. That's the company that owns the latest generation of GLP-1 agonists.
Yes.
So that's what they are, but with Ozempic.
Semaglutide is the name, right? Yeah. So my thoughts are, for probably 90% of people having it, they definitely should not. There most likely is a use case for, some people are 200 kilos with no hope in sight and, they're close to death. Their body's shutting down. I think those people may be eligible to use something like that where it really is life or death and they don't know what to do. They have no solutions and it will take the fat off. They don't have any muscle to waste away anyway, because that's also what it does, right? You will lose weight, but it's not, you don't lose it from where you don't get to choose where you lose it from. And so, yeah, you might lose some fat, but you'll atrophy your muscles first.
Yeah,
and
so this is
that's
an interesting
why,
point. A lot of doctors, because a lot of doctors are now coming back. So there's obviously huge anger against Ozempic from the fitness community because these people are losing weight and getting very aesthetically skinny without trying, or celebrities are. And so the fitness community are like, we hate this. And then there are the very educated doctors and people like yourselves who are like, it's dumb. It's something like 40% of the weight you lose is muscle. So even if you've got a lot of fat to lose, 40% of it's lean tissue. But there are a lot of doctors now using a low dose of it combined with a really high protein way of eating, which is hard if your appetite's been turned off, and resistance training to mitigate that lean mass loss. But so what I think the issue is people using it without a clue about nutrition, like anything really.
Yeah, but then why do you need it? If you've got them on a high protein diet and during resistance training, why do you even need the Ozempic? Like, you've got everything you needed.
Yeah, so I think these doctors are listening to are using it in like a medical case, like you said, if someone's 200 kgs, and then they use the high protein diet and resistance training as a mitigation to losing, rather than just the mechanism to make it work in the first place.
So they do understand
I
it.
have to agree. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it?
Because they're doctors. They're clearly smart people.
Have you had
It's
much on
more.
Ozempic locally?
It's around.
Really,
I'm aware of people using it for sure.
really, really medically overweight people or general people?
Certainly not what I would qualify as being 200 kgs, but there are probably
People
people who
like privately importing it.
I couldn't tell you. I think it's prescribed, and I don't think it's that difficult to get it. But also, I'm hearing studies coming out now about liver and organ issues and osteoporosis and all kinds of problems internally that are coming from it. And of course, like if you're able to completely sap away fat and muscle, chances are you're leaching every
There's
other
something else.
mineral and vitamin out of your body as well. So I imagine there's massive mineral deficiencies in there. Yeah, it's
I
not the
think you hit
solution.
the nail on the head. Yeah, people don't really understand that, yes, you can knock your appetite out by 90%, but actually,
Yeah.
your nutrition probably wasn't brilliant in the first place, but you were probably getting enough through in some way to keep yourself functioning well. When you then, knock your appetite on the head by 90%, and a lot of people, let's be honest, most people aren't taking Ozempic and eating a high protein diet and resistance training. Most people are taking Ozempic, eating one piece of fried chicken instead of 10, and genuinely have a smaller portion of sugary yogurt,
Yeah.
and your body is left in like quite a state. This is anecdotal, of course,
It
but
is, but yeah, I mean, I think it's safe to assume that if you're willing to take that shortcut, you're not willing to put in any effort and figure out what the cause is anyway. And if you've got to that point where you want to take Ozempic, then you're probably not you don't want to know. You don't want to know how to actually fix yourself. And to be honest, for me, that goes for a lot of pharmaceuticals. Full stop. Most of the time there are always natural ways to cure things, and so I think that's really important. And like I said, I don't eat like you plants for nutrition really, but I do consume them from a medical point of view. Like herbs and tonics and things like that are amazing for medicine. That's where plants really shine.
so tell me, Chris, what's on your plate at the moment? What's on your plate and what's in your medicine, plant medicine cabinet?
Well, do we have anything laying around? Laura's been busy making all kinds of stuff.
Cool.
You see,
Let's do it
I'll just
together.
explain. So, lots of skin stuff specifically because she's conscious of her skin postpartum. So
Yeah, I'm
we've got
sure not.
lots of that going on. So, and I have like a fungal issue that's I know is related to my gut, but it comes out on my skin sometimes. So oregano is what I use for that.
Yeah.
And
Oregano oil for eating oregano.
I use oil, a very small amount, and mixed into like tallow balms, and so it's animal fat balms with medicinal essential oils and even things like rosemary and herbs and things that you can just infuse into things like that, and they work wonders. It's fantastic, and they're so much cheaper than the cosmetic stuff. Hundreds of dollars for a little tube of this thing. And what's in that one, Laura, that you like to use at night? The one on the sink.
Castor oil, jojoba oil.
Castor oil, jojoba oil.
Jojoba oil is carrier oil or
Yeah,
for, yeah.
that's carrier. Yeah. Moringa oil is in that one. Black seed oil.
Do I need to record a
Wakana.
podcast with Laura too?
Yeah. Yeah, probably. Argan oil as well. Anything else? Lavender,
Yeah, lavender's so good for sleep.
rosemary. Yeah, that's just one.
Do
We're
you,
building
I
a
think
apothecary.
I need to have a chat to Laura because I don't know how old Laura is, but I'm 35 now and every single one of my friends is getting Botox.
Oh yeah,
And I'm like 10 years behind them. Should
she's
stop.
38,
Hey,
37. Sorry,
okay. Laura, I
my
need to
bad.
know your secrets.
Yeah, I'll get her to make you some.
Oh,
To be
yeah,
honest, for
and
me,
I'm sure the listeners would love it too.
yeah. To be honest, for me, I find the tallow to be the best for my skin.
Yeah,
It's
I've
just
heard a lot about
it
this
feels
too.
so. Sorry.
I've heard a lot about using tallow.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's
As
very,
opposed to, all the toiletries on the shelves these days, good old vegan marketing. You can get
yeah,
vegan shampoo,
yeah,
vegan shower gel.
I know. Yeah. I mean, ultimately, it's a waste product from butchery most of the time anyway. So, if you really want to be conscious of that, like cows are not going away as food, why not use all of it? Like use the organs for eating; it's the most nutritious part, and boil the bones down and make stocks and broths, and use the fat for cooking with, and rub it all over yourself. It's great. Cows all in one shop.
I love the idea of like using absolutely every part of the animal and ancestral health wise and just trying to get as close to nature as possible, I guess.
Well, exactly, and that is my philosophy, really. Like, if I'm unsure of something, I just try and think back. Like, how long have we been around? We've got to this point, hundreds of thousands of years, let's say. What would have people done? How did they eat? And it would have been like eating, timing of eating. It would have been sporadic. I think we're designed to go longer periods of time without food, and we call that fasting now. But once upon a time, it was just necessity, and we're perfectly capable. And it turns out it's the best healing mechanism that you could possibly find. And guess what? It's free. It costs nothing.
Chris, this is quite an interesting insight as well. You must have heard about the guy who fasted for over 300 days.
Yeah, I was going to mention that before, actually, when you
Yeah.
was talking about the weight loss. Yeah, the
Yeah.
Scottish
So
guy.
God, that was in the 1920s or something. But
Yeah,
what was fascinating about that is he had barely any loose skin.
yes,
And so I don't know what Laura's battling with her skin after having a baby, and I'm sure it's bits and pieces similar to me. But I was quite conscious throughout those first few weeks. I didn't do a lot of intentional fasting because obviously you need so much fuel. But
yeah,
I did fast quite a lot in the mornings just because I was bloody busy. And so I'd naturally not eat until 10 or 11 in the morning after being up at 4
see,
sometimes. You know what it's like. So actually, people like, it's not technically fasting till that late in the day, but once you've been up for 5 hours, it's still a relatively good stretch of time. And I
yeah,
do feel like my skin sort of, so I'd give my gut a really, really long, good break overnight. I do feel like my skin went back quite quickly, and I do wonder whether that's got anything to do with it. But as a woman working in nutrition, talking about fasting after you've just had a baby,
Mm.
I daren't go there.
Well, to be honest, it's not necessary. I actually think that men fast better than females,
I agree. Yeah.
and that seems to be evident in like we work on a daily cycle, whereas females are on a monthly cycle. So those kind of patterns are not the same at all, and that's hormonal. So our hormones are, we all reset every day. We're good to go. So if we're hungry, new day, move on. Whereas female hormones are not the same at all.
No, for women, I think, and it's getting really tricky with the messaging everywhere.
Yeah,
Fasting's good, fasting's bad, fasting's better at some times a month. Like, so is work. Sometimes you feel really outgoing and really on the ball, and sometimes you want to hide away. It's so interesting. And
it
I
is.
think,
And the only answer for all that is that you really have to learn how to be in tune with yourself and recognize how you feel. And, is it causing you a problem? Are you able to do what you want to do and achieve what you want to achieve? And if you're not, you need to maybe make an adjustment. But it's very hard to get to that point in the first place when you can actually feel what's going on and let alone be able to make an action to correct it. So that comes with quite a bit of experience. But going back to the natural thing, this would have just been natural. If you like once upon a time, people will just do mostly out of necessity, but you do what you do what you do, and you just act on impulse and fit and feel. Now we've got all this messaging coming from you. You can make an
now we
argument
know
for literally,
everything.
yeah, for anything. You can make an argument for anything because you can find both sides of the argument and be like, here's the evidence for this, so this must be true. So, well, I can find you the opposite argument with plenty of good peer-reviewed science as well. So we can't use that as a guide anymore because it's a moot point. It won't get you anywhere because you will constantly be battling with different scientific arguments.
If you see
So
this, if you spend too long on the internet, you can get into the weeds a little bit there, because there will be a double-blind, placebo-controlled trial to explain that veganism is great. I know, but the veganism, carnivore, like all those sorts of things, and they often are very small sample sizes, or they're very big sample sizes, but association, not causation. So that means that the things happen at the same time rather than one causing the other. So, for example, most people feel amazing when they first start a vegan diet because they
Mhm.
all the shit.
Mm.
Interesting, isn't it?
Yes.
And then, same with carnivore. But I think it's how long that lasts and how good you feel. I think
And
that,
being able to course correct when it starts to go south.
yes, this is what I love about your journey. You were
Mm.
vegan
Yes.
and teeth started to fall out.
Yeah, pretty much. Amongst other things, but that was the very
Yeah.
obvious and alarming thing.
Yeah.
And it was something I was aware of at the time. And I was, studying as much as I possibly could to find out, the best way to live on a vegan diet. And I
Yeah.
could not, for the life of me, find anything to counteract the huge amounts of carbohydrates that veganism inherently forces you to eat. And I could feel my teeth were sensitive. And I was like, this is not right. And I was digging and digging and digging. And I still, to this day, have not found anything that would counteract that
Right.
or a good argument for teeth. So that was the first step, really, to course correction.
Yeah. Learning.
Yeah, but going back to your previous point about the scientific studies and what. The biggest issue is finding out who actually wrote it. Who has commissioned this study, because they don't get done for free, not very often. So someone's paid for it. Who are they? What's their agenda? They usually have one. Like you say, if it's from the Vegan Association or the egg or beef and lamb, whatever, they've got an agenda. They're paying to get the results they want so that they can claim scientific backing. So that's the problem we have. It's all corrupt. The real information is not available, and the only person that really knows is yourself, I think.
Thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, funny. No. I think there's a lot of good people out there trying to do good things. And I think, like you say, there's often a funny agenda behind it all.
Yeah.
And I definitely don't think what I consider the right or the most natural form of human nutrition has reached the mainstream yet. And I think that's a real shame, because I think it does, I'm not moaning, but I think it does leave people like you and I who are in business trying to help people out as best as possible in a really tricky situation, because we are battling upstream against the tide washing in the other direction. Like every time we have to walk around the supermarket and you walk up and down the cereal aisle with 87 different boxes of cereal with, over hundreds of different health messages on them that people walk past every day, that's completely normal. And it's got things like the health star ratings on, which we talked about last time, which are complete bollocks. Like, it's really, really interesting. Since I talked to you last time, Chris Van Tullequin in the UK has done quite a good book or study about 70% of the UK supermarkets now being ultra processed food. So not just processed food, but ultra processed food. So cereal, ultra processed grains, even things like cereal bars, obviously. Even as far as bread, it's possibly not the gluten, probably not the gluten, but the way that grain has been manipulated from the grass, in the ground, through to this 17 ingredient loaf of bread on your supermarket that stays fresh when it's cut into slices.
Yeah. Are you familiar with Gary Brecker?
I've heard of him.
Yeah, he's a
Right. Again.
new hot shot on the scene. I'll let you dig. We won't get into that right now, but write his name down. He's got a lot of very great information, which I think you'll find useful. But anyway, one of his points is that folic acid being added to bread and flour amongst supplements for maternal women as well, he says that is one of the biggest issues in our health, because it isn't natural. It doesn't exist. Folate and folic acid are not the same thing.
So I'm assuming, did Laura take folic acid?
Yes, you did take folic acid, didn't you? Yes.
Yeah.
Found this out after.
I did too, because it's the fear of God's put into you, right? And then you hear that it's
Yeah.
now automatically, it's like our food system's laced with it too, like our bread. Not that I ever eat bread, to be fair, but
But that's
I,
the point, was that that is often potentially the issue in bread is folic acid or pesticides. But the problem with folic acid is that 40% of the population of the world, I believe, cannot methylate folic acid, which means can't convert it into its building blocks,
form of,
which means you've just got this lump of shit now pumping around your body, which you can't break down and get rid of. So Gary Brecker, suggests doing a methylation test, and it's genetic, and you can find a gene which will tell you if you can or cannot methylate folate, and it's called the motherfucker gene. Actually, it's quite funny. MTHFR, they call it the
yeah,
motherfucker gene.
yeah,
Yeah, so that's relating to. Just knowing if you can or cannot break that down can change your life, literally. And there are other methylation tests as well that can
there's lots,
just
isn't
find
there?
genetic instances where there are certain things that you just one tiny thing that you just can't deal with, and that is the cause of all of your problems. And all you have to do is have one simple supplement that's going to allow you to do that. One common cheap supplement that will allow you to break it down, and that'll clear up all your problems. So yeah, that's a rabbit hole worth going down anyway. He's an
Yeah,
interesting
we're
guy.
getting into the weeds, aren't we? And going down a
Yeah,
rabbit hole. And we've hit an hour, Chris, already, which I can't
always.
believe. So before we get on to your final takeaway, what does Real Food Kitchen look like? Simply just a rebrand and exactly what you were doing before. So delicious meals prepared for people. Anything
It is
new?
still that. Yeah, there are differences though. It's an upgraded version
Whoa.
essentially. So Hippocrates was more of a reliance. It was a meal plan essentially. Like you sign up for the week, you get lunch and dinner for these days, or whatever, dinner for these days, whatever. But the menu was kind of set for you, and you didn't really get to choose. And I found that was an obstacle that people were not willing to just give blind faith into what they eat. And so, fair enough. I probably wouldn't either, actually. So
Yeah.
now it's going to be far more selective if you want it to be. So if there's certain meals that you don't want to have, you just take them out and you can put other things in, and you can literally choose your weekly food based off exactly what you want to eat, knowing full well that whatever you choose is a good option. And there's still 3 deliveries per week, and people will be able to just order, one or two things. If you just want to try it, you can
Yeah.
just grab something. And because that was another obstacle that we had, is that people are not inclined to so much sign up to a subscription straight away. They would like to try it first, and so they just don't do it. So being able to just try
You break it
something,
down.
just order
Barry.
something and try it, and then I imagine they'll be like, yeah, this is actually great. And then
Yeah.
they'll be in. So yeah, that's changed. Obviously the messaging will change slightly. So from a marketing perspective and social media stuff, like Hippocrates is out, although he'll never be out really. He'll always be there.
Yeah. He'll always be on his shoulder, on our shoulder.
Absolutely. But yeah, RFK is going to have some great messaging coming out, and some very interesting studies, I think, are gonna bring up some things which will be very useful, because ultimately this comes down to corruption. All of this is about money and greedy people sacrificing everybody else for their own pocket. So once this is addressed and this information comes out, then we can actually objectively think, okay, this wasn't good information. We are being lied to. There is money involved in this. So maybe we can take a step back and try and get back to our ancestral roots.
Right. I agree. I'm bloody intrigued as to what's going to happen over the next few years, to be honest. I
Yeah.
just saw Laura, which anyone watching the video, between your
Oh, yeah.
arm. Hi.
Just back here.
Not expected to be on camera and watched it. Anyone watching, just listening to the audio, sorry. It's just got
Our house is tiny.
yeah.
There's nowhere else to go.
Yeah. And so let's do some takeaways. both you and I, real people, Chris. Tiny houses, we're about to move house, we've just been Airbnb as, life is chaos, new babies.
Mhm.
What are your few key takeaways for people in business, parents who just want to look and mostly feel, like you say, feel as good as possible?
Well, just use my service. Will probably help a lot. Nah, I'm joking.
So if you're in Queen, sign
Yeah.
up.
They don't have to do that. Just take the same principles. Avoid seed oils, avoid sugar, avoid crappy gluten. Like if you want to have some bread, go to a nice bakery and get a decent loaf of French sourdough.
European bakery is pretty good, I hear.
European bakery is good, although it is not. There are still other things added to it. I think probably the Ma Boulangerie is where I would recommend to get bread from.
In Remarkables.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah, I
that's
like it there.
proper French style. It's a bit heavier and
They do coffee too.
they do good coffee, yeah, and good pastries as well, but that will not be sugar-free, unfortunately. But still, every now and again. But as a guideline, those
Yeah.
three things, if you can just stick to those, you eliminate all processed food just by default. Because every single processed, shitty packaged item will have one of those things in it. If most likely will have all three,
Remind
but
us
it'll have one of them. Sorry.
of the three again, Chris.
Seed oils. So that's canola, sunflower, grapeseed, rice bran.
Yeah.
Those, avoid those. Refined sugar. So that's white sugar, brown sugar. That doesn't include honey. I don't count honey in that. I think that's different. Fruit, honey, even maple syrup. They're completely natural. Maybe don't go overboard on them, but yeah, it's fine. And then the last one is should we say refined processed gluten?
Gluten, grain.
Yeah, if you can just stick to those things,
I'm
keep
hearing
meat
a
as your
few people, the jury being out on seed oils these days, and they're not too bad for you. But I think what you've explained is really valid in that when they're in those processed foods, just avoid them. Like
well.
it's a rule, right? I never eat them
I would
anyway.
argue, I would check the sources of where that data is coming from. I would say because yeah, first of all, they're not natural. They are not a natural part of our diet and never have been. They were engine lubricants and byproducts. The first one was from cottonseed oil is another one. You don't see it much, but that was the first one. And they obviously was making cotton. So, we got all this shit. Let's see if we can make something out of it.
Yeah.
And so they did, and they just refined it and it's deodorized. And because the smell would be so bad, if you was to actually smell or taste what you're consuming, you no way you would do it because it would be rancid. And they are rancid anyway. The oil goes off. It's
A lot of processing to make them palatable, isn't there?
yeah, exactly. So they're not part of our diet. They never
So
have been.
three things, everyone, that Chris says to avoid for your best health. Chris, protein and fat, your thoughts?
Up more the better. But also,
Everyone needs protein, don't they?
chickpeas and beans are not a protein source. They're carbohydrates with a bit of incomplete protein in them. It's not the same thing. Your body doesn't recognize it the same way as complete proteins from animals. So
Thank you for saying.
unfortunately, yeah.
It's a
That's all right.
link article on my website. There's actually like thousands and thousands of views on an article. Carrots and hummus are not a high protein snack. It's shocking.
No, yeah, they're not. Hummus is really high in fat, and it's usually a shitty oil as well.
Yeah, it's not how they make hummus in Europe or the Middle East, that's for
No,
sure.
it's not.
In our supermarket.
It's not.
Yeah.
So protein should always be the centerpiece. So meat first, everything else comes after that. So once you've had your fill of protein, yeah, eat some more stuff for sure. But fat is essential as well. So fatty meat, I think, is what should be the main part of our diets, and always has been the most prized thing in nature. And you can see this in hunter-gatherer tribes that still exist. Like it's God to them, literally. Fatty meat and honey is what they say is their God. That's what they live for. So
We've
I
got
think there's something to that.
I know, I'd agree. Well, Chris, hour and 11 minutes.
Nice.
So I will stop it there before people get too bored. But thank you very much for your time. And I'm really excited to see Real Food Kitchen come back and see all sort of what's new. And I do feel like we have plenty more to talk about. So whether it's later on
Absolutely.
2 or season 3, bring
Yeah.
it on.
Well, we'll also start looking into spreading out of Queenstown a bit as well and seeing if we can venture into Cromwell and
I was
Wanaka
gonna
potentially. Yeah.
Okay, that's amazing. And I was also going to suggest I'm trying to do more partnerships, try and be more out there and do better marketing in 2025. So if you fancy doing a little partnership, we might have to offer people the chance to win something like a program and a week of food or something like that.
Yeah,
You fancy?
absolutely.
Cool.
Happy to do that. Sounds
On
good.
final notes, I will let you go. And thank you, Chris.
All right. Thanks, Amy. We'll
See you
speak
soon.
soon. See you
Bye.
later. Bye.